Hey everyone, how to make your own homemade hummingbird feeder with something as simple as a Tupperware dish, a cigarette lighter or a match, a pin, some fishing line or some twine, and of course your scissors to cut the fishing line. So really minimal ingredients, and you can make this in a matter of seconds and have it be more effective than a commercial purchased hummingbird feeder. Now, something I want to point out too is, and this is really important, I'm kind of pointing it out early, and that is, you can see where this is what it looks like when you purchase it, but after a bit of time, they get filled up with mold. And now this mold can actually kill hummingbirds. So the nice thing about this bird feeder is that it's simple, nothing complicated, no extra holes. We're gonna have one simple hole, okay? Now this is our old one. This is our first generation. The holes were way too big. And of course, wasps and ants got in the holes. And of course, we were taking this thing down 4 times a day to pick out the wasps and the ants. So we're gonna make the holes much smaller. We're gonna make them this size so that the wasps can't get in and only the odd ant will get into this. But the more important thing I wanna emphasize here is this is what it's supposed to look like. However, they fill up with mold. And this is one of the reasons I do not like these commercial units, because there's just too many nicks and crannies, and if you're not diligent with taking a scrubbing brush and cleaning this thing diligently, okay, and there's no way to take the bottom off to know how much mold is in the bottom, this, okay, you can take this off, all right, because you've got to fill this with the juice, but you don't know, right? We can't take these off unless we've got to rip them off practically, okay, but we don't know. Oh, we can actually rip it apart. So you can see how much work there is involved to actually rip this apart. It's the first time I've ever ripped it apart. And then you've got to scrub all those tiny little orifices in there. And then in there, you can see all the black mold. This will kill hummingbirds. So this is what we want to avoid. So first off, I've kept this around as just a bit of a demo for the video to show you, okay? And I'm not an advocate of this, but I want to show you also the hole size. That's a perfect hole size. And this system here today is something quick and simple. This is our first generation, and we used a drill. So if you can either use a drill, you can use a push pin, you can use a needle, and I'm going to show you just how quick and simple it is. First off, we have 2 little tiny holes right here, and all we're going to do is just poke the pin in there, nice and hot, okay? So it's basically going to be 2, 4. Okay, and then what we're going to do, you can see where we've got 2 holes in here. We're only going to put in 1. And the reason why is this. Hummingbirds are real territorial. Okay, they're almost more territorial than like rats and cats and squirrels and skunks. Okay, so hummingbirds will just, you'll hear them. One will come in and another one will come in and it'll be this all this crazy chaos because the hummingbirds are fighting for the sugar water. So, hey, and you think 2 hummingbirds are going to sit side by side and drink the hummingbird water like this sugar water? No way, not a chance, okay? They're going to be busy fighting for supremacy over the water. So, real simple. Okay, our lighter, heat it up, and you don't have to worry. As long as you got a long enough pin, my hand, it's not getting hot here. Okay, and I'm just gonna make a simple hole, and you can see that the pin gets hot enough where I can actually kind of auger a bit of a hole here too, right? Now we got a bit of wind today, so we're gonna see if we can just poke this, if it's still hot enough. It's not. Now the wind is gonna mess with my lighter today. Oh, it's also gonna mess with my little flowers falling outside. Okay, this is where you say, hey, wind. Okay, there we go, back on track. Okay, 2 holes. And the key thing here is just to make sure that your holes are made far enough apart. And if you don't make them far enough apart, do not worry. So you can see these ones here, I made them along the edges. So these ones too, I'll make them along the edges. And if for some reason they're not in the perfect position, guess what? We'll just make more. We're not gonna fret. It's just a hole in the plastic container. So you can see where this one's here. Maybe I could put this one a little further on the outside. There we go. Okay, and we'll put this one just a little further right. Oh, not quite hot enough. It didn't. Okay, there we go. And this is in real time, so you're gonna get a sense of just how quick you can make this hummingbird feeder. Now, here's a little rule of thumb, okay? We're gonna measure out 2 pieces of string, or I like to use fishing line, because we're using some nylon string, and with the sun coming in, hitting the nylon twine, it eventually broke down. And then it, all of a sudden, you know, Camille was carrying out the hummingbird feeder yesterday, and all of a sudden she had one hand underneath it, one hand holding onto the twine, all of a sudden, boom, it fell. Okay, but luckily she had a handle on it, and you can see where the string just deteriorated. So I've switched up to some 40-pound fishing line. You don't need 40 pounds. I mean, this will hold a 40-pound fish. So I've measured it out. It's about 23 inches long. So this isn't exact. You can make it 21, 22, 23, 24. The key thing here is that we want to just make sure that when we hang it up, that the birds are not going to get tangled in this area, okay? So we've got our fishing line. And then the next thing is we want to measure roughly, okay? We got to imagine a hummingbird's going to come in here. They're going to step on this thing here, and they got to put their little beak into the hole, okay? So we're going to measure about, from the edge, about 1.5 inches. Okay, so from the edge to here, and we found this to be a really good distance. So we're going to measure that out here. All right, so we're gonna measure just like this, roughly 1.5 inches, about there from the edge. Okay, so we've got 1.5 inches right there. Can we see that in the camera? There it is, 1.5 inches, okay? So we know where our spot is, our sweet spot right there. We can also see where it is here as well. So again, let me just double check that. As they say, as Stephen Covey would say, measure twice, cut once. Okay, so right there, okay? And then we're gonna come in straight in from here, and it's gonna go right in there. That's the sweet spot right there, okay? So I'm gonna come in like this, and I'm gonna heat this up. And we go in, and again, you can play with the size of the hole if you've got ant problems and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to deal with ants. Now that hole definitely is too small, but if you're dealing with ants, you definitely want to make sure, now you may not ever escape the ants, but you definitely want to make sure you don't get the wasps in there, because wasps are a pain in the butt. All right, so we're going to just go in like this, and I'm just going to auger that hole a bit more. And again, remember I was using this as a bit of a rule of thumb. That hole might even be a little on the large side. We can make it a little bit smaller. Now keep in mind, when a hummingbird, right, they got this long, thin beak, okay? And they, imagine my fingers, long, thin beak. They have to be able to open their mouth just a little bit to be able to sip the water with their tongue, okay? And I got Camille in the background saying, their tongue. And I was like, oh yeah, right. They got to sip it with their tongue, right? Just like they got to lap it up. Okay. All right. So we got this hole here, and here's the cool thing. If we find that they're struggling to get the water out, we can always just make the hole bigger. It's summertime. They're not going to die if they don't get a bit of sugar water, because there's a lot of hummingbird feeders around. I really encourage a lot of people all the time. People come over and they're just mesmerized and blown away by these hummingbirds that are like zipping around our yard, having a great time drinking sugar water. And I tell them, please go home. I take this down, I show it to them. I said, listen, this is how simple of a hummingbird feeder we've got. Fill it up. Feed these birds in the winter. They are starving for sugar water. And if you don't do that, you know, like we go on holiday, different people go on holiday, they don't get fed, they're gonna die. So please. And so I have more and more people who are sharing with me that they're either buying a hummingbird feeder or making a hummingbird feeder, and I'm just so excited that they're doing this. Okay, so here we go, okay? Now, a couple more things, if you really want to, okay? You don't have to do this, okay? And this is all for effect, okay? All for effect. They will come in, they recognize the red lid, they've been conditioned on this feeder, so they know to come in and they will get the sugar water, okay? Now here's something I'm just gonna show you guys, and again, it's completely for effect. You don't need it, but if you're somebody that loves to dance up anything you make, you can get yourself a piece of plastic from your yogurt container or your cottage cheese container or whatever that is, okay? And you can cut out the shape of a flower, and then what you can do is you can get a little bit of glue and put a bit of glue on there, and now you've got this target that looks like a flower. Or what I've done to show you guys is you can put on a smaller flower, okay? I did these up, I cut them out of like a plastic bag. You can put them on there. These will work perfectly fine, just like that, okay? Nothing fancy, really simple. This is simple, simple, simple. So you're not, spending all day trying to make a hummingbird feeder. You can have this thing made in, under 10 minutes. So we're gonna go through, feed our fishing line through. I did measure them exact, all right? Even though you didn't see me measure them, I did measure each piece exact. And the reason why is because I want to make sure that when the fishing line is set, that we don't have an unevenness to the hummingbird feeder, okay? And I'm going to do my darndest here as well to make sure that I'm leaving about, when I tie these knots, I'm leaving about 1/4 of an inch at the end, just like that. Again, the whole idea here is that, oh, see that one pulled through. So I need to actually put 2 knots in that one. So, because the hole is too big. See if we can push it back through. There it is. Okay, so we're gonna put in a double knot, maybe even a triple knot, because we made the hole just a smidgen too big. So, and for any of my friends here in Vancouver that are watching this, if you need some fishing line, if you're here in Kitsilano and you're thinking, oh, I don't need to go and buy a whole big roll of fishing line, just give me a call, send me an email, send me a text message, and I will get you a couple of feet. I'll get you 4 feet of fishing line so that you can make your own hummingbird feeder. You can go to the dollar store, you can get a Tupperware dish like this for a couple of bucks or $1 or less. You probably get like, I don't know, a half dozen of these things for $1. So you can make these for next to nothing. Okay, there we go. See that? It's nice and heavy, or it's nice and strong, so it can lift something heavy, I should say. Okay. That one's in place. So we'll just double knot it right from the get-go, and then there's absolutely no question about it. Again, a little 1/4 inch tail there, and one more like this. Oh, we gotta just make sure that this knot is snugged up to this knot. There we are. Okay, beautiful. And some of you are gonna have your own creative ways of making your knots and having this all sit in there and stay. And that is perfectly, perfectly fine. This is just one quick, fast, efficient method that we have found that works really great. And literally, it's just something, it was just awesome. So nice and strong. Okay, so we've now got, now you might go like this, and then you say, oh my goodness, the hole for the juice is over here. Not a problem. Okay, you know why? Because you can move that hole wherever you want it. So now, when you hang up the hummingbird feeder, the hole is right there. So when the birds land on it, it's right there, ready to go. Okay?
Are you going to make this a little bit bigger? Because it really is not big enough.
Do you think that's too small?
Yeah.
Okay,
really,
so I'll
really
make that hole just a smidgen bigger. Camille thinks it's a little too small, and it's easy to do right now. And if you happen to make it too big and you need to close it, you can always melt a little bit of plastic from another dish and actually just plug it a bit. So we'll just go like this. Okay, see that size there? We'll compare it with this size here.
A little bit bigger, just a tiny bit bigger.
I think that would be good, but I'll make it a smidgen bigger.
And I think for this, we're going to need to put a yellow flower on it, because it's a little different.
Okay, what I'll do for the yellow flower, because I don't want to use a plastic bag, is we'll actually use a plastic, because these plastic flowers will come off. So here's there's an upside and a downside to putting plastic flowers on as well, everybody. If you put a piece of plastic on like this, and you got to make sure you seal it all the way around the inside, what can eventually happen is that you can also get mold building up underneath the flower, which is why I prefer to actually avoid using a flower altogether.
Yeah.
Because that way you don't have to worry about getting mold buildup. And then when you want to clean the hummingbird feeder, it's really super simple. All you do is just take the hummingbird feeder off and scrape the lid, scrub it from the inside, scrub it from the outside, and it's done really fast and quick and effectively. So there we go. We're just heating this up. Oh yes, nice and hot. And believe it or not, the pin's not getting hot on my fingers. And if it ever does, you can always just use, wear a little glove or something. Okay, so we've made that a little bit bigger, just like that. So we've got it set, ready to go for the birds. And we'll test this out and see how it works. So just from here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to our next step, which is we're gonna fill this with some sugar water. Now, we've prepared our sugar water in advance. For the summertime, what we fill it with is a mixture of 1 part sugar to 4 cups of water. And what you want to do is, I usually put 1 cup of hot water, 1 cup of sugar, I dissolve the sugar, and then I add cold water to let it all cool off. And then I add it to the container. Now the next thing is, in the winter time, what helps is to actually add 1 cup of sugar to 3 cups of water, because you're making the concentration much stronger so that the sugar content's higher, because the hummingbirds need a higher sugar content for the winter. And here's the thing, is if you mix it 1 part sugar, 3 parts water in the winter, the sugar content, believe it or not, will actually help to take the freezing temperature of that water down a bit lower. So instead of the water freezing at 0, it might not freeze until, say, -1 or -2. And if you have that hummingbird feeder close to your home, that will also help to prevent it from freezing that much sooner. So we've got this mixture all made up. We made this up yesterday. And another thing, you want to, in the summertime, to prevent algae buildup in the sugar water and also in your container, you want to make it a point of changing the sugar water every 4 days. Because if you don't do that, 5 days maximum, because you might say, hey, there's still lots of water left, still change it. And because if you don't do that, what's going to happen is you can get algae buildup, and then you start getting, again, algae, fungus, and that's not good. It's detrimental to the hummingbirds. So here it is, like so. And you can see, oh, there we go. Okay, I would say this is definitely full.
Sometimes I don't put the lid on.
Okay, so
all the way.
There it is. Okay, I would say this one's definitely full.
They can drink from the outside.
They can drink from the outside. And here's the thing is, hummingbirds will become conditioned and they will figure out where the hole is. Okay, so what we can do too, just a little trick here. We have a little hook set up on the side of our house, so I can just test it right now, imagining if I had a hook right now, right here like this. And you can see that the balance is pretty even. Okay, this one is pretty good all the way around. So we're gonna just take it like so. And I'm gonna show you where we hang it up over here. And we've got a hook set up just up here. And keep in mind, you're never ever gonna get away from the ants. The ants are always gonna be there, okay? And just like that. We keep it level. As the water level starts to get lower, you can also just tilt it like this. See how I can tilt it? Because it's tilting on this and it's sliding on the fishing line. I can tilt it like this. And then what it's doing is it's tilting it down like this so that the water level, instead of being lower, as you tilt it, the water level comes higher down at this end for the hummingbirds to feed on. So there you have it, everyone. Just that quick and simple. All right. And I was taking the time to explain it in a lot of, intricate details and adding a lot of other details around the mixture of water and just some other finite details around the mold. However, if you want to make this, you could probably make it in half the time of this video. And what I really encourage everyone to do is just share this with everyone, long, far, and wide, and have just everybody around you set up hummingbird feeders in warmer climates, down in the Kootenays, down in the Okanagan, Christina Lake, Grand Forks, where it gets really hot, and there's tons of hummingbirds that come in these areas, down in the States, down in Florida. All right, what I recommend everyone to do is to have multiple hummingbird feeders set up. Here in the West Coast in Vancouver, we quite often, most commonly, get Anna's hummingbird that stays here all year round. They winter. You can be -10 and you'll see hummingbirds in your yard. I mean, it's just absolutely bizarre when you see a hummingbird in the middle of winter and you're dressed up in a parka and this hummingbird is buzzing around like a bee. Well, they're here, they set up nests, they're determined. And I think, just so you guys are aware, hummingbirds sleep in what's called a torped position. That means basically they curl their feet onto a branch and then they gotta go and they fall over. And when they wake up, they just kind of like, and they come up and they wake up and they start flying again. So I think here in the West Coast, they do make nests and they live in nests because that's typically where they will keep their young. So I've yet to find a hummingbird nest here on the West Coast, or see how hummingbirds are living. But if you find one, share it with me, place a comment, and let me know, because I'm really, really curious to see how they keep warm in the winter. I often see them when we used to have dogs. I used to see them running around the yard at times, different birds as well as hummingbirds, and they're grabbing little bits of dog hair and they're using it for their nests. So I imagine they're probably using it in some way, shape, or fashion in that way. So, but I encourage everyone, get yourself a hummingbird feeder. Get yourself at least one, if not 2 or 3. Doesn't matter if you live in an apartment building and you're 10 floors up or 2 floors down from the bottom, wherever it is, just hang it up, get a hummingbird feeder, make it. You can see how quick and simple you can make it for like $1, all right? Or you could probably go to the recycling and just get a container, poke some holes in it, just like I've done, have it set up, and you'll be feeding hummingbirds and making a difference for the birds and the planet. And hummingbirds are great because they feed on the insects and they contribute to our ecosystem and our society and life, and they're fun and they're beautiful. Thanks for watching, everyone, and have fun making your hummingbird feeder. And if you make some and they look kind of cool and funky and creative, I would love to see an image posted in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment.